Okay, we just read the saddest scene in all of Shakespeare, Act 4, Scene 2, the death of Lady Macbeth and her family. And now we come to Act 4, Scene 3, which jumps all the way from Scotland to England, where Macduff is seeking out Malcolm. Malcolm has been hiding in King Edward's palace, and here's the conversation. It's quite lengthy. I apologize. Malcolm says, "Let us seek out some desolate shade, and there weep our sad bosoms empty." But Macduff says, "Let us rather hold fast the mortal sword, and like good men bestride our downfallen birthdom. Each new morning, new widows howl, new orphans cry, new sorrows strike heaven on the face, that it resounds as if it felt with Scotland and yelled out like syllable of dolor." Dolor means pain. Malcolm says, "What I believe I'll wail, what no believe, and what I can redress, as I shall find the time to friend, I will. What you have spoke, it may be so perchance. This tyrant, whose sole name blisters our tongues, was once thought honest. You have loved him well. He hath not touched you yet. I am young, but something you may deserve of him through me, and wisdom to offer up a weak, poor, innocent lamb to appease an angry God. I am not treacherous, but Macbeth is. A good and virtuous nature may recoil in an imperial charge, but I shall crave your pardon. That which you are my thoughts cannot transpose. Angels are bright still, though the brightest fell. Though all things foul would wear the brows of grace, yet grace must still look so. I have lost my hopes. Perchance even there were where I did find my doubts, why in that rawness left you wife and child. Those precious motives, those strong knots of love, without leave-taking. I pray you, let not my jealousies be your dishonors, but mine own safeties. You may be rightly just, whatever I shall think. Oh, bleed, bleed, poor country! Great tyranny, lay thou thy basest shore. For goodness dare not check thee. Wear thou thy wrongs. The title is afeard. Fare thee well, Lord. I would not be the villain that thou thinkest, for the whole space that's in the tyrant's grasp, and the rich East to boot. Be not offended, I speak not as in absolute fear of you. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. It weeps, it bleeds, and each day a gash is added to her wounds. I think withal there would be hands uplifted in my right, and here my gracious England have I offer of goodly thousands. But for all this, when I shall tread upon the tyrant's head, or wear it on my sword, yet my poor country shall have more vices than it had before, more suffer, and more sundry ways than ever, by him that shall succeed. What should he be? It is myself, I mean, in whom I know all the particulars of vice so grafted, that when thy shall be opened, black Macbeth will seem as pure as snow, and the poor state esteem him as a lamb, being compared with my confineless harms. Not in the legions of horrid hell can come a devil more damned in evils to top Macbeth. I grant him bloody, luxurious, avaricious, false, deceitful, sudden, malicious, smacking of every sin that has a name. But there's no bottom, none, in my voluptuousness. Your wives, your daughters, your matrons and your maids could not fill up the cistern of my lust, and my desire all continent impediments would overbear that did oppose my will. Better Macbeth than such as one to reign. Boundless temperance in nature is a tyranny, It hath been the untimely emptying of the happy throne and fall of many kings. But fear not yet to take upon you what is yours. You may convey your pleasures in a spacious plenty, and yet seem cold, the time ye may so hoodwink. We have willing dames enough. There cannot be that vulture in you to devour so many as will to greatness dedicate themselves, finding it so inclined. Whew. Okay, so then Malcolm responds, where this there grows in my most ill-composed affection such a staunchless avarice that, were I king, I should cut off the nobles for their lands, desire his jewels in this other's house, and my more having should be as a sauce to make me hunger more, that I should forge quarrels unjust against the good and loyal, destroying them from wealth. Okay, Malcolm seems to be going through vices that he claims to have, but he's lying. Make sure you read my annotations because they're explaining everything that's going on. And those are linked on the resources page. First, he says that he's lusty, that he would pull all the women of Scotland for his own sexual gratification. And Macduff does answer that this is bad, but we can live with it. Then Malcolm says that he would steal from all the noblemen, all the loyal thanes of his kingdom. He would take their jewelry and their money and their land and destroy their wealth. And Macduff responds, this avarice sticks deeper, grows with more pernicious root than summer-seeming lust. And it hath been the sword of our slain kings. Yet do not fear. Scotland hath foisons to fill up your will, of your mere own. All these are portable with other graces weighed. He's saying, you know what? Maybe you are greedy, but that's better than what we've got right now, and Scotland can afford you. So Malcolm goes for number 3. But I have none. The king becoming graces as justice, verity, temperance, stableness, bounty, perseverance, mercy, lowliness, devotion, patience, courage, fortitude. I have no relish of them, but abound in the division of each several crime, acting it many ways. Nay, had I power, I should pour the sweet milk of concord into hell, uproar the universal peace, confound all unity on earth. So finally he's saying, I have no virtues whatsoever. Every bad quality you can imagine, I've got it. So now Macduff says, oh, Scotland, Scotland! If such a one be fit to govern, speak. I am as I have spoken. Fit to govern? You are not fit to live. O nation miserable, with an untitled tyrant bloody sceptred, when shalt thou see thy wholesome days again, since that the truest issue of thy throne by his own interdiction stands accursed, and does blaspheme his breed? Thy royal father was a most sainted king. The queen that bore thee, oftener upon her knees than on her feet in prayer, died every day she lived. Fare thee well. These evils thou repeatest upon thyself have banished me from Scotland. Oh, my breast, thy hope ends here. So Macduff is finally convinced enough from Malcolm that he's awful that Macduff quits trying to recruit him to go back to Scotland. And at this point, the test is now over. Malcolm says, Macduff, this noble passion, child of integrity, hath from my soul wiped the black scruples, reconciled my thoughts to thy good truth and honor. Devilish Macbeth by many of these trains hath sought to win me into his power, and modest wisdom plucks me from over credulous haste. In other words, I couldn't trust you. Macbeth has been sending so many people over to England to try to convince me to come back into Scotland, but it's a trap, that I had to test you. All right, but God above deal between thee and me. For even now I put myself to thy direction, and unspeak mine own detraction. So it's like saying, I was lying just to test you, just to see if like you would continue. Because like basically, if Macduff had been sent by Macbeth to get Malcolm to come back to Scotland, he would have agreed to anything. But the fact that Macduff finally gave up and said, oh no, Scotland is lost, Malcolm is terrible, that was the proof that Malcolm needed to know that Macduff was actually, actually has Scotland's best interests at heart. So now he has to like convince him that all that other stuff was just a test. For even now I put myself to thy direction, and unspeak mine own detraction. Here abjure the taints and blames I laid upon myself, for strangers to my talent. I am yet unknown to woman, never was forsworn, scarcely have coveted what was mine own, at no time broke my faith, would not betray the devil to his fellow, and delight no less in truth than life. My first false speaking, like the first time I've ever lied in my life, was this upon myself. What I am truly is thine, and my poor country's to command. Whither indeed, before thy here approach, old Seward, with 10,000 warlike men already at a point, was setting forth. Now we'll together, and the chance of goodness be like our warranted quarrel. Why are you silent? Well, what do you think you're silent? Well, such welcome and unwelcome things at once, 'tis hard to reconcile. In other words, like, wow, like, that's a real, this is actually Shakespeare at his best. Like, he uses logic to the extreme, saying, okay, I got to test this guy. How will I know if he's actually truly interested in fighting for Scotland, or if he's just another liar sent from Macbeth to try to trick me? And so Malcolm was able to figure it out and earn Macduff's trust and trust Macduff. All right, now a doctor of England comes into the room. Well, more anon. Comes the king forth, I pray you. And the doctor says, ah, yes, there are a crew of wretched souls that stay his cure. Their malady convinces the great assay of art, but at his touch, such sanctity hath heaven given his hand, they presently amend. The doctor is talking about King Edward. King Edward was said to have the ability to heal certain diseases with just his touch, because God had graced him. All right, I thank you, doctor. Exit the doctor. And Macduff says, what the disease he means? And Malcolm says, 'tis called the evil, a most miraculous work in his good king, which often since my here remain in England I have seen him do. How he solicits heaven, himself best knows, but strangely visited people, all swollen and ulcerous, pitiful to the eye, the mere despair of surgery he cures, hanging a golden stamp upon their necks, put on with holy prayers, and 'tis spoken to the succeeding royalty he leaves the healing benediction. With this strange virtue he hath a heavenly gift of prophecy, and sundry blessings hang about his throne that speak him full of grace. What Shakespeare is doing here is he's saying that a good king heals the nation, which is to juxtapose with Scotland, which suffers from an evil king in Macbeth, and his nation is ill. In comes Ross, Thane of Messaging, and Macduff says, see, who comes here? My countryman, but yet I know him not. My ever gentle cousin, welcome hither. I know him now, good God, betimes remove the means that makes us strangers. So it's like, Malcolm has met Ross before, but he could barely recognize him, probably because, it's been a rough time in Scotland. Ross says, sir, amen. Stand Scotland where it did? Alas, poor country, almost afraid to know itself. It cannot be called our mother, but our grave, where nothing, but who knows nothing, is once seen to smile, where sighs and groans and shrieks that rend the air are made, not marked, where violent sorrow seems a modern ecstasy. The dead man's knell is there scarce asked for, who and good men's lives expire before the flowers in their caps, dying or ere they sicken. So Scotland is not in good shape. Like, the flower on a man's hat dies after the man dies. Oh, relation, too nice and yet too true. What's the newest grief? That of an hour's age doth hiss the speaker. Each minute teems a new one. How does my wife? Why, well. And my children? Well, too. The tyrant has not battered at their peace? No, they were well at peace when I did leave them. Like, Ross is really beating around the bush. Ross knows that they're dead. But he's like, oh, no, they're okay. They were good when I left them. Like, well, why did you leave them? Anyway, so Macduff says, be not a niggard of your speech. How goes it? When I came hither to transport the tidings which I have heavily borne, there ran a rumor of many worthy fellows that were out, which was to my belief witnessed the rather. For that I saw the tyrant's power afoot, now is the time of help. Your eye in Scotland would create soldiers, make our women fight, to doff their dire distresses. Be it their comfort. He's saying if Malcolm would show up to Scotland, it would really rally the troops and help people like stand up for themselves. And Malcolm says, don't worry about that. We are coming thither. Gracious England hath lent us good Seward and 10,000 men, and older and better soldier none than Christendom gives out. So Malcolm is going to have a lord of England named Seward who has 10,000 soldiers, and they're going to come and rescue Scotland and take it over for Malcolm. Ross says, would I could answer this comfort with the like, but I have words that would be howled out in the desert air, where hearing should not latch them. Okay, now that Ross has heard the good news that an army is coming to save Scotland, now he feels that he can speak the truth, and he's going to let loose the words that Macduff does not want to hear. What concern they? The general cause, or is it a fee grief due to some single breast? No mind that's honest, but in it shares some woe, though the main part pertains to you alone. That's kind of a beautiful line. Ross is saying that everybody would be would be hurt to hear it, but specifically Macduff will be hurt to hear it. If it be mine, keep it not from me. Quickly, let me have it. Let not your ears despise my tongue forever, which shall possess them with the heaviest sound that ever yet they heard. I guess at it. Macduff thinks he knows what he's about to say. Finally, Ross comes out and says it. Your castle is surprised. That means invaded. Your wife and babes savagely slaughtered. To relate the manner were on the quarry of these murdered deer to add the death of you. Merciful heaven! What, man? Never pull your hat upon your brows. Give sorrow words. The grief that does not speak whispers to the overfraught heart and bids it break. Macduff says, my children too? Wife, children, servants, all that could be found. And I must be from thence? My wife killed too? I have said. Be comforted. Let's make us medicines of our great revenge to cure this deadly grief. He has no children. All my pretty ones? Did you say all? Oh, hell kite. All? What? all my pretty chickens and their dam at one fell swoop? Dispute it like a man. I shall do so, but I must also feel it as a man. I cannot but remember such things that were most precious to me. Did heaven look on and would not take their part? Sinful Macduff, they were all struck for thee. Not that I am, not for their own demerits, but for mine. Fell slaughter on their souls. Heaven rest them now. Be this the whetstone of your sword. Let grief convert to anger. Blunt not the heart, enrage it. Oh, I could play the woman with mine eyes, and braggart with my tongue. But, gentle heavens, cut short all intermission. Front to front, bring thou this fiend of Scotland and myself. Within my sword's length set him. If he escape, heaven forgive him too. So Macduff's finally comes to the point of, oh, put Macbeth in front of me and give me a sword, and if I don't kill him, then heaven help him. And Malcolm says, this tune goes manly. Come, go we to the king. Our power is ready. Our lack is nothing but our leave. Macbeth is ripe for shaking, and the powers above put on their instruments. Receive what cheer you may. The night is long that never finds the day. Malcolm is saying, okay, I like where your head is at right now. You want revenge, which is good, because we're going to gather our English army and we're going to invade Scotland. And this is the end of Act 4. Act 5 will be the invasion of Scotland by Malcolm. And it's a humdinger. Hope you can, and check out my link of the 5 stages of grief. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for reading with me, and have a good day.